Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Flagrant Howls, no Phil. Phil's traveling for the holidays, but we still have a State of the Wolves. Judd Zolgad, Kyle Teige here joining us also on Flagrant Howls. Dudes, I'm going to do my absolute best, either some combination of Mark Madsen towel waving to lead us here, or like some Luke Ridnour minutes as the de facto starting point guard that shouldn't be a starter on any other team, but he's starting on the Wolves for 78 games, and that's where I'm at here. I'm going to try my absolute best to orchestrate this offense.
This is kind of BS. I thought Dex and Judd, when they texted me last night, were going to have me talk about the Vikings, so I thought I was making my Purple Daily debut. But I guess, Dex, I will talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and what is a pretty difficult basketball team right now.
It is a difficult basketball team. We'll give vibes and State of the Wolf. Judd, you're also muted, by the way.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm back right now. I'm back right now. I muted and unmuted myself, and that's my fault. Anyway, my guess is that Dex is going to hold the ball too long. He's going to bring the ball up the floor. Kyle is going to be in the paint, waving his hand, open as can be. Dex is going to hold the ball, not trust him, and then we are going to have friction. And I'm
Judd,
in the corner.
And Judd's not going to hold anyone accountable for it.
No. And I'm in the corner saying, what's going on here? That's my guess. In fact, that would be a very fitting Flagrant Howls to actually botch the entire show through selfishness and inability to actually share.
Yep. And over under 1.5 tribute videos from this episode. So very excited to get into this here.
Just stop. Don't
on Flagrant Howls.
I'm being honest. I was at the Vikings game, as you both know, and Purple Daily, shout out to all the, I think you get 10 million views. That's incredible. It's the best probably football podcast in the country, not just team specific. But I was still getting people texting me yesterday afternoon, a couple Bloody Marys deep. What were your thoughts on the tribute video takes? And I was like, oh my God, we might have to address that today. But I don't know. I did listen to that whole episode, by the way, and it's like, I saw what you're going for. I just think in general, it piles on to what is, it's pretty bad right now. Like I told Dane, I thought this was the lowest moment of the Rudy Gobert tenure. Not because of like, I mean, it's actually probably not, but at least when the Rudy thing wasn't working in year one, you were like, well, we didn't have anything to lose, right? Like they played 5 playoff games after Pat Bev stood on the scorer's table. This time around, you actually had something to lose, like a player that a lot of people felt really attached to, something that like a proven concept that had worked. So I'm excited to see what you two have to say about kind of highs and lows of the temps and vibes of the team, because I don't think the vibes have been this bad in a really long time.
Which is really a great way to start the show. Go Timberwolves, Declan.
Click the like button.
That's right. Like button, subscribe button. State of the Wolves. I'll give you an overview here. So the Wolves are now 14-13. They've dropped back-to-back games. They enter play on Monday, December 23rd, 10th in the Western Conference. They're a game and a half back of the top 6 seeds in the West. They're now 21st in offensive rating. That has fallen from, I believe, 19th a week ago. They are 5th in defensive rating. They've made a significant jump, obviously, in the last couple weeks there from being a fringe top 10 defense. Last year, they were the number 1 defense. They're once again now a top 5 defense. Some discrepancies here from both sites. So ESPN says the Timberwolves have a 31% chance to make the playoffs, which is very low. Basketball Reference gives them a 71% chance to make the playoffs. So two different percentages there. ESPN, 0.0% chance to win the NBA title. They gave them a 0.0%. One of like 7 teams that they don't even have a chance.
How many decimals did you go out on that, though?
Well, ESPN just gives you 2. So,
okay.
yeah. Like, I
bet if you go to 5, they got a chance.
Yeah, there could be a third one there.
Okay.
I will say Basketball Reference gave them a 0.2. So they have that going for them.
There we go.
So there is a world in Basketball Reference where the Wolves also win the NBA title. And if the Wolves, if the playoffs started today, the Wolves would play the Spurs in a play-in. So let's give a vibe check here. Kyle, I will toss it to you. What are the Wolves' vibes right now? I know you teased it a little bit there with Gobert, but what are the Wolves' vibes right now?
Not great. I will say on top of your like offensive defensive rating stuff, I do think over the last like 11 games now, including that Warriors game, which we can talk about, they're still first. Like that defensive rating has gotten really good. So over the last 11 games, they're I think first in the league with a 102. But they're basically, if you look at them last year versus this year, they're a really good defense. Chris Finch has once again kind of coached a top 5 defense. They have an identity on that end of the floor. But last year at this time, they were like 17th in offense. And then what Dex just said, like they're bottom 5, bottom 6 now in offense. So they've gotten worse. No surprise. They traded a really good offensive player for a player who has not fit. But man, in terms of the vibes, you guys, I've heard Chris Finch say more times after post-game pressers that he made a mistake than he's ever said before. Like there's more of those in a 26-game sample than in the 200 games he coached before. Ant has never been this mad post-game. I mean, his officiating rant is going to cost him probably $100,000 today when that comes out.
Except for the Knicks game, where he was overjoyed for his friend Carl. This is what you can expect from Carl. This is what he does. I'm mad we lost, but I was joyous for Carl. So everyone just gave Carl it was just a great way to welcome him home because nobody gave a damn.
I liked it better when you muted yourself. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's right. It's really bad, and I just keep coming back to because I am an optimist, but I also realize how bad it is. It's like, what is the one difference between this year and last year? It's not like they have 12 new players or a new coach or like new ownership, and they might never get that. It's like 1 or 2 dudes. And the one guy that I watch that has a lot of viral videos of just half effort, not rotating on defense. I mean, if your identity is defense and the new big guy from Kentucky isn't playing it, like that's tough for me. So it's a gut check time, but I also kind of like that it's happening because I think sometimes, if they were just scraping by in some of these games, I mean, Judd, you would know this. You go to these things, like that's maybe not the best either. Like if they're 14 and 13 or whatever. If they were 17 and 10, I think these issues would still very much exist, both publicly and privately. So it's kind of all out there now, and it's time to see who can step up and who can kind of fix this thing, and whether that's the coaches or the players. It's not going to get any easier, right? Like tonight against Atlanta, and then you're on national TV on Christmas, something you've wanted for 20 years. And if you get trounced by 30, I don't think everyone's going to be employed the next day.
Ooh. Okay, hold on a second. You can't say that and not name who do you think would not be employed the next day?
Maybe the mascot. I don't know. I don't think Chris Finch is going to get fired. But I also know, because I do think internally there's a lot of respect for him on both sides of ownership, and I do think even though you can point at things with, he did this really cool 4-part interview with Britt Robson right before the season, and he's like, this is how we're going to level up again. This is what I'm going to try with Carl this time and all stuff, and then Carl's just gone. So how much, we haven't really talked about that, but like how much was Finch involved in that decision, the second apron and stuff, but I don't think Chris Finch is going to go anywhere, but I also have watched enough NBA games where if you get embarrassed on national TV, it just multiplies it, Judd. So I don't think he's going to get fired by any means, but I think they do have to have like a respectable showing on ABC on Christmas Day. Otherwise, it just gets so negative.
The Wolves' vibes are unsustainable. This can't continue.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that Julius Randle is going to be moved as soon as they can get a return that they consider to be decent. DiVincenzo has had a really rough year. Like he came here, and I really believe he was the key part from the Tim Connelly standpoint to this trade. This trade doesn't get made without the Knicks relenting and saying, we will throw DiVincenzo in as well. And the thought process is this guy can shoot threes. He's going to give us a lot of things that Carl did from an offensive standpoint, and it's going to be fine. And the reality is he's been terrible. He's been inconsistent. He doesn't seem to be happy. His role, going back to Chris Finch, has been questionable. They don't have another point guard. This is the problem, too. Mike Conley's old, and he had a phenomenal year in 2023-24, but to expect that to be repeated at his age was ridiculous, and they sort of did. And now he can't play as much, but when he's off the floor, because they don't trust, and I'm not completely shocked by this, Dillingham to play a ton, they basically have guys willy-nilly bringing the ball up the floor, and it's not working. And now Dante's been put in a position where he can't catch and shoot because he's got the ball. But Julius, I think it's a sticking point. I think it's a real problem. I like him, and I thought that the acquisition from what I had seen of him as a Knick would actually work. It has not. He's turned, and I think it's contractual too. This is typical of a guy that can opt out sometimes, where you're thinking about yourself, right? And so you want the basketball, you want to score, you want to do this and that. I think that they need to trade him as soon as possible. I think that actually could put them on the road to success. It's a disappointment, but I do not think that his presence in the starting lineup, in the locker room, is sustainable here. So I think Wolves vibes, Declan, are unsustainable.
Yeah, I would say vibes are angry. Vibes are just angry again.
Yeah.
Like this time last week, it looked like, they've won 6 of 7. Things are starting to click a little bit here. Maybe vibes are finally trending back in the right direction. And then we have the Cat game and the tribute videos and people either saying how much they miss Cat or why are they giving so much time to Cat? He doesn't even play for us anymore. The own players are saying the same thing. The vibes are angry. And it does. I kind of side with Kyle that it does remind me of like the Wolves from 2 years ago, where they were still figuring things out with Rudy. It's not working. Who do we blame? But this is also the team we have. To Judd's point, I think there are changes you can make. I think you can trade Julius Randle, and I think you take whatever return you can get. You'd like to think Dante DiVincenzo evens out and starts hitting his shots, but he hasn't. It's been a fourth of the season, and he's still one of the worst shooters in the league. So you got to figure out something there to get the vibes turned around. But yeah, they're angry. Everyone's angry right now, and they should be angry. This team almost went to the NBA Finals last year, for God's sakes. And now here they are still like middling as a play-in team through the first 25 games of the season.
Yeah, I want to defend Judd a little bit because I also thought the Julius Randle acquisition just in a vacuum would have worked. Because basketball-wise, I saw some of the stuff he did. I didn't think he could replace Carl because he can't shoot that well from three.
Right.
But I thought there was like a hybrid of like, he can do some of that Kyle Anderson stuff where he can facilitate. He can get the ball off the rim and push in transition, get guys open looks. And this is bad because I like vibes more than I like basketball reference, did not put enough emphasis on what the vibes could be like. And a lot of the Knicks fans that are listening to these pods because they are interested in what their former players are doing are like, yeah, that's the Julius Randle experience. Like, he is going to mope and he is going to have bad body language when things don't go well. And to Judd's point, Dana and I did 90 minutes the other day on accountability. Like, is Chris Finch holding these guys accountable, or is he incapable now of holding these guys accountable? And I think, Judd, you're in the locker room, you're there. I'm curious for your take on that. But my biggest concern, and this, we got to shout out Jace Frederick, who does a good job at the Pioneer Press, but he had a really interesting tweet that I want you guys to just respond to. It was percentage of teams' clutch time minutes played.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
Last year, before the Cat injury, Karl-Anthony Towns played 85% of the team's clutch time minutes, and Nas played 18.6. This year, Julius Randle is playing 97.2% of the team's clutch time minutes, and Nas Reed is playing 5.6. And I think there's a belief in the fan base that Chris Finch is scared to hold Julius Randle accountable because of what Judd said and his contract status, and he's got a player option. And do you want him to pick it up? Do you not want him to pick him up? But now it's spiraling to me of, if you made the Carl trade because of the second apron, and I believe that was one reason, and you wanted to save that money to pay Nas Reed and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, two of your better players, you are now diminishing both of their roles for a guy that you don't even know if you want. And that, to me, is like the worst of the vibes. Like, if you don't think Julius Randle is going to be here a year from now, he should not be the first person that gets to walk into the buffet line or sit at the table.
Right. And Chris Finch, make no mistake, has had a bad year.
100%.
Like he has had a bet from a starting point. But let me give you something else too that I have no idea if the following statement is true or not, but it feels like no matter what the intentions were, it feels like what I'm about to say is true. Tim Connelly and Chris Finch do not seem to be on the same page. And the trade is one. And I know that Julius came in and said, Finch, he's my guy. In New Orleans, he was an assistant, and he believed in me, damn it. And so there does appear to be no substance to, on the eve of training camp, you traded Cat there appears to be nothing to Finch saying, what are we doing? Now, he might have. I don't know. But that's one. Like, it's almost as if Conley went and got Julius, and Finch is like, okay, I'll play him, despite the fact that the accountability by now, especially when you don't play defense like the rest of your team wants to, is out there. That to me is the biggest thing. Like Julius Randle's minutes should be lessened, if nothing else, because he's not on the same page of playing defense, which we all know is hard. Like, it's not fun, probably. It's probably like the least fun because you got to work your ass off, and it's not sexy. There's not points. But that's one thing. The other one that I think is very sneaky, though, goes back to Mike Conley. And it's this. You traded up to draft Rob Dillingham, 8th overall, okay? 8th overall. In my opinion, a top 10 pick should be somebody that if you're going to make that trade, the idea is he's going to play. Not, we're going to sit him because we don't trust him, or in this case, Chris Finch. So you don't have a backup point guard now because the Pobo drafted one and the coach doesn't want to play him. And my question is, that night, what was the intention? Like, did you not realize what the shortcomings of Dilly were going to be? Did the Pobo not care enough and the coach did? This seems to me to be a starting point of, are you guys on the same page? Because right now with how things are being distributed, it does not appear that way. And that is a problem, especially for a team, Kyle, to your point, which went into the season with major expectations. There's not a lot of room here for, come back next year. Like, that's an old Wolves thing. This is a Western Conference finalist looking like it's completely disconnected. And that is a major issue.
And this is going to sound like I'm making apologies, but I'm actually, if you ask me, like, what do you want from this season? Like, last year we all had record-breaking fun. But if you ask me, what do I want this season? I just want a clear, transparent plan. Because you talk to some people and it's like, hey, no one, including people in front offices, still fully understands this new CBA. And the second apron isn't bad, it's not terrible, it's a death sentence. And if you mess up your dominoes a little bit, you can find yourself all of a sudden in a situation where, like, you're the Clippers and you're like, how many times in your lives of all your sports you cover did you hear the cliche, like, you can't just lose an asset for nothing? Well, the Clippers just lost Paul George for nothing and said, no, we don't even want to sign and trade. Like, we don't want anything coming back. We just want to lose it so that our books are a little more cleared up. The Wolves at least got something, right? Like a couple players and a pick. Shout out to our Detroit Pistons who are currently in the play-in. But so maybe internally, Judd, Tim told Chris, Finch, and others, this is going to be our gap year. And I know that sucks because we just made the Western Conference Finals, but maybe we don't believe that was maybe that was a house of cards. Maybe that wasn't like sustainable, repeatable, all that stuff. I'd be okay with that. But then if this is your gap year, Rob Dillingham, the 8th overall pick in the lottery, can't not play. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just going to take your lumps for a year and you're telling guys behind the scenes, like, enjoy all the contracts, we're going to get Nas paid and Akil paid, right, then Rob should just play a bunch. But the issue is, and to Judd's point, you got two guys on the team that really push winning, like move the needle in Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, and they are not Benjamin Button. Like, they are not getting younger. So if you're going to take a gap year and play the young guys, what do you do with the older guys who have contributed to so much winning? I think it is a real big conundrum, but to me, it all comes back to, you don't want to, like, cut off. I mean, I think the Wolves need to cut off their arm to save their body, and that would be the Julius Randle trade. But now they're kind of like, well, what if we just cut off our torso? Well, then you're going to die. Yeah, and that's why, if you think Nas Reed is the future next to Rudy, I think there's a lot of good stuff that says those guys work together. Yep. Then at some point, like, you might have already pissed off Julius Randle. Julius Randle might piss off Julius Randle. He seems like a guy that just wakes up and is mad. You can't now double down by pissing off Nas Reed or Rob Dillingham. Like, you gotta, the strategy, the plan right now, and this falls on Finch, but also Tim, it just doesn't make sense, Judd. Like, whatever they're trying to do seems like they're just every day waking up being like, oh, I guess today we'll try to do this. Like, there's no vision, which is weird because the Towns trade was about a vision of clearing up financials for the next 5 years.
Right, and Nas, and I said this, I think, about 3 weeks ago. In my opinion, I would start Nas now because even though Nas is not shooting as well as one would like, the thing with Nas is he still gives you a lot. Like, I guess my question is this. If Julius is not playing great, which he's not, what does he give you? Like, it's not like, okay, but on the defensive end of the floor, he is working his ass off, which Nas does. So if I'm playing for this team and playing for Finch, and I see this distribution of playing time, right? What's going through my head? Which is, hold on a second. There's guys who are struggling at certain things, but I know what I'm going to get from them every night on the effort scale. But yet a guy, and Julius, to be very, very clear, is not, in my opinion, a star player. Like, he's a good player. I thought that he would be good, but I don't see him, to your point, as Cat. It's not like it was a straight, okay, Julius is replacing Cat, and let's go. It was, DiVincenzo is going to help make up for Cat's loss of 3-pointers. Julius is going to come in and sort of be a bulldog and score some points. So, yeah, I do think that, from Conley and Finch's standpoint, there has been a complete lack of accountability that's almost being rewarded. And if I'm a player, that's extremely frustrating. And Gobert has also sort of been iced out somewhat. And he can become a big pout as well, because Gobert's at his best when he's involved, especially defensively. So, like, chemistry-wise, this whole thing is a mess.
Yeah, I would say, least favorite thing is a bunch of things you laid out of chemistry and the offense just not clicking. I do want to go back, and this, by the way, I'm going to preface this, that this would be a doomsday, basically, situation for the Wolves. But
don't you dare. I know where you're going.
I love going at history. I love looking at history. So, obviously, the 03-04 Wolves team that went to the Western Conference Finals with KG and Cassell and Spree take the Lakers to 6 games. They come back the next year. The Wolves have the second best odds to win the NBA title. They have a 55.5 over-under win total. What's funny about that year is, like, 7 of the 8 teams, that was a very much a transition year in the NBA. Like, 7 of the first 8 teams that had the best odds to win the NBA title all went under on their win totals. Like, the Kings started to regress, the Wolves regressed, the Lakers lost Shaq, they regressed. I don't think that this looks like an 04-05 situation where now you're wasting the back half of KG's prime. You can't figure out the right coach and supplemental players to put around him, because I think this Wolves team is still built too good on paper to look like that. But, man, I think that's what's maybe creeping into some Minnesota sports fans and Timberwolves fans of, please, for the love of God, do not let the most successful season in franchise history be followed by 18 years of ineptitude for the most part. But the vibes are weird. The vibes are, and I was 12, 13, I think, when the 04-05 season started. So I still remember this collapse. I remember when Flip got fired and McHale took over and they kind of went on a run. They just missed getting into the playoffs. But that would be my fear, that this just turns into something like that, because Minnesota sports fans love to look at revisionist history and say, here we go again.
Do you know what else it crept into? You said, like, the fans and stuff. I think it might, and they'll never say this. You kind of have to be boots on the ground to, like, get a vibe for it over time. I think it's crept into the players' minds a little bit, and it's something that I don't think we talk about enough. But last year, within a 4-month span, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards, and Jaden McDaniels all got contract extensions or new contracts and got paid, right? So they all went into a season of, like, we're all good. Let's just hoop. And I think Nas even said that, like, last November. He's like, we're all good. Like, we got all that stuff out of the way. Like, we have one mission, and that's to win a title. That is not the case this year, right? Like, we talk about Julius Randle, and he has this player option next year, which he could not do and then leave, and you get nothing. Or you could pick it up if you don't want him, and now you're paying him $35, $40 million for a guy you don't want. But Naz Reid is also a free agent, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker is also a free agent. Like, there's other guys now that are once again in this weird, if I don't play well, how is that going to hurt my long-term career earnings? So, and to Dex's point, one of the reasons that fell apart 20 years ago is because of money. So, I don't know. It is a real tough line to kind of weave, but you do need to prioritize, again, this Julius Randle thing. I don't think he is the sole reason that they're bad or not fun. But if he's not part of your long-term vision, then he has to be the first guy you kind of move out. Because, again, like Naz Reid, I think he's the starting power forward next season. I think he's making $25 million a year. Do you know if he's really, like, capable of being really good every night? I'd like to know now. So to Judd's point, like, start him. I'd like to know if not. I mean, we all think it is. We all have the towels. But can he do it on a night-to-night basis? Let's find out right now. Because the offense sucks. So let's at least see if that spark, let's see what those guys look like, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert for 50 games. That would start now. Let's try that.
I think the key thing here, too, is this. I do not think in any way, shape, or form Chris Finch deserves to be fired. He is part of the problem, and yes, that's unfortunate, but I think the most important thing that you can do just as sort of a chemistry experiment right now is eliminate Randle from that room, because I think genuinely there is, for the most part, a pretty good cohesiveness there, but Julius doesn't fit. And I don't know if that extends to off the court as well, but on the court, it certainly looks as such. And the other thing is, I do think if you have any intentions of winning, so like if you're going to come back from what's just been a very up and down start, tepid, I don't think that this team is awful. It's also, it feels like, though, that when things do start to turn around, they revert hard, which is not good. But I think if you're going to do this, the thing that you should do is trade Julius. And 2, I think you got to get another guy that can handle the basketball behind Conley.
Yeah, well, what about that guy they took 8th overall?
Well, I know, but if you have determined we cannot trust him defensively, we can't.
Okay.
Which by the way is a miss. Like that's a problem. 18th, okay, that's fine. 8th, no. But if you have determined, you know what, Dillingham cannot be trusted. He's going to be good eventually. It's not now. Then you have to get somebody else, because Mike Conley cannot replicate, and it's been proven, what he did a year ago, which, by the way, we should all appreciate. That was a very pleasant surprise at his age. So it's not like, oh, damn him. But if you can get someone to literally bring the ball up the floor and run the offense when Conley is not playing, which Julius Randle has no business trying to do, which Ant and Nas struggle with at times, I really think that would give you at least a chance. Because I don't think that this season to me is not lost. This can be a team that gets in the playoffs, and quite frankly, they could win a round. But they're not going to do it with the current construction. And Julius, to me, is the sore thumb there.
And just one thing on the Rob stuff, everything Judd just said was spot on. I just think we're deep into it enough now that if internally they're saying, Rob, I don't know if he's ready for the defensive side of the ball yet, then listen here, Chris Finch and Mike Nori, I don't think Julius Randle is ready for the offensive side of the ball. Yep. You're going to have to give up something. And at least, I did not watch the Warriors game, again, in Seattle, taking a little break, and I checked my phone, and with 6 minutes left in the second quarter, the Minnesota Timberwolves had 15 points.
It was ugly.
So I don't think it can get any worse. I don't really care how much they had given up at that time because, again, through 18 minutes, they scored 15 points. Rob Dillingham will help that. You might be down 50, but I'm willing to try to see that now because, again, you did invest resources and assets for a team very limited with them, pick swap, a future first. You got to let the kid play. He cannot. And I'm with you, Judd. I still kind of ride for Chris Finch because of the overall stuff. I just hate in sports, and I would love Dex's opinion on this too, when the first answer is always fire the coach. Okay, whatever, I get it. They don't make as much as the players. It's easy. You don't have to trade them. You can just fire them. Mm-hmm. You guys, I'm just being really, I've been around this team enough. I know Mike Nori's going to come in and basically just do everything Chris Finch did. He might try some different things to be like, hey, this is a job interview for me. He's not going to come in and be completely different. So if that's not the answer, and at least Chris Finch does have an ability to connect with the best player, and Ant seems to still love him, I just think that's a lever that you pull that could all of a sudden have way worse ramifications, even though Chris Finch is coaching really a D-level grade this season.
Yes. Yeah, I would say, number one, you really only pull that lever, too, is if he completely loses the locker room and just loses the respect. Again, going back to the 04-05, I was 12-13, but I remember my dad being absolutely adamant that, why the hell are they firing Flip Saunders? This has nothing to do with Flip. This has zero to do with Flip. And Kevin McHale made some bad roster decisions. This has nothing to do now with McHale just going to take over the team and also coach the team. I would only fire Chris Finch. That's the last ditch effort here, where it's at the 40 or 50 game, probably more 50 game mark that they're this isn't working and he's lost the locker room. I don't think that'll be the case.
I'm going to interrupt you, but because you had a great point and you love history. They fired Flip Saunders and Judd. Tell me if you remember these names. Kevin McHale, Dwayne Casey, Randy Whitman, Kurt Rambis, Rick Adelman, Sam Mitchell, Tom Thibodeau, Ryan Saunders. Like it didn't. There was some little optimism there. It got really bad. They fired Flip Saunders and eventually landed on who I think is the worst coach in NBA history, Kurt Rambis. So again, I'm not trying to defend Finch. He does need to make seismic changes, and it can't be gluing the rookie to the bench. But Dex hit the nail on the head. It's not always grass is greener on the other side. You could bring in someone who's just a people pleaser, and now your team is bad on defense and bad on offense.
Firing Finch would be the most Wolves-like thing that the Wolves could do. Yeah. It would be panicked. And look, I love to call for heads. I love to call for coaches like the Twins, the Wild, the Vikings at times. People run their course. They're not good or good enough. That's not a problem here. If you fire Finch, you're not going to get, it's not going to change. It's not going to change the problem. And the problem is the locker room. And it's not that the coach has lost it. It's that there is just enough, I don't know if the right term is butting of heads, but there's enough problems there. That's the issue. And let's also not forget that in the rough year department, Tim Conley ain't exactly been great. So like, and we don't know, like, did Conley draft Dillingham and say, play him? And Finch is like, hold on a second. I can't. Has Conley told Finch, hey, Julius needs to play? Like, we don't know. These are all conversations that can go on behind closed doors that teams will deny up and down, but they happen. Yep. So, like, there's a lot of things here. And Dex is exactly right. The flip thing was the most panicked. Oh, my God, we're not, we were good and we're still good, but we're not good enough. We're going to fire a coach. Now, that led to 18 years of dysfunction. One would hope that you wouldn't have that. But, Dwayne Casey did not deserve to be fired either. He was 500. And the Wolves pulled the rug because we're better than that. Well, no, you weren't. So, yeah, I do not think a coaching change here makes a ton of sense. I think it starts with the actual players more so.
Yeah. Hey, we'll do a batch of, we'll try here. We're going to do a batch of favorite Wolves things here in just a second, but a quick shout out to our friend of Heather Barker, new friend of Flagrant Howls. So Heather is a huge Wolves fan. In fact, put Heather in the rotation for God's sakes at this point. You can find her at wolvesrealtor.com. She's an accomplished realtor, a longtime season ticket holder too of the Minnesota Timberwolves. She's in Section 104. Go say hi. She's in Row G. She's part of Exit North Star Real Estate Group. So if you're looking to buy your first home, maybe you're like me, maybe you're looking to sell your home after this holiday season, contact Heather. It's simple as this, wolvesrealtor.com. Plus, when you go to her page, she's giving a chance for fans to win tickets to a lower-level Wolves game. So at the very least, enter for your chance to win some tickets to see a Timberwolves game. And if you're looking to sell your home, hit up Heather. It's wolvesrealtor.com for the audio audience, for the YouTube audience. It's right there on your screen and in our description as well. wolvesrealtor.com. Go check out our friend, Heather.
I bet you Heather can help Julius sell his house.
Yeah, yes.
He didn't buy a house, right?
I think he's
probably
renting.
not. He's
my
probably
sister,
renting.
fun fact,
Townhouse,
my sister
my
thought he was living next door to her for about 2 weeks because I won't say the current player. There is a current player on the Wolves that was renting a house down the street from my sister, and she thought Julius Randle moved in there. It's not Julius Randle. But yes, Heather can probably help facilitate that.
So all that for it wasn't him?
Yeah, all that for it, and it wasn't him. I
thought you were going to say it was him.
No, I know. That's what I thought.
And now he's moved.
No, there's another player that's
renting.
on the Wolves. But
Townhouse renter, no question in my mind for Julius.
I will. I'll keep that. I'll keep that information private. Who used to be there? But favorite Wolves thing. Do we have a favorite Wolves thing here before we wrap on Flagrant Howls? Kyle, do you have anything in the bag?
Saturday. It was awesome. I didn't watch a single minute of it. It was my favorite thing because I was enjoying a real professional football team down there, up there in Pacific Northwest when the Vikings played the Seahawks. But I am a sicko. Like, last year was a lot of fun, but I have a little bit of that Ricky Bobby's dad at Applebee's in me where I just sometimes am more comfortable doing the content, Judd, when everything's a little uneasy. And I just think the last month, starting with when Ant kind of called him out after the Kings game to now what's been going on post-game these last couple of days, I actually think in the NBA that drama can be good and it leads to growth. So I want to see how they respond. I want to see, do they fire the coach, like Judd said, and go old school Timberwolves? Let's just bring in Kurt Rambis and his 19% winning percentage. I just think this is a good step. And if this is a gap year, I want to know, who really is built for this. I think Naz Reid is built for this. I think he is growing voice in that locker room. I just want to see when the chips are down a little bit. I mean, also, too, the Denver Nuggets last night, I think, came back and beat the Pelicans. They were down 14. I haven't seen one person who covers the Denver Nuggets have a positive tweet in like a month. So a lot of teams are going through it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can make an argument that like 8 or 9 of the 12 teams in the West who have a chance to make the playoffs are going through it. So I want to see which of them, including Minnesota, can kind of pick themselves up. So my good thing is that it's just really bad, but I want to see how they respond.
Right. Well, and consistently, right? Ant calls him out after the Kings loss, and it actually worked. And then it's like, okay, you're back up. And it's not that you lose games. It's a long year. You're going to go through slumps. It's how it looks. It's how you look, right? So my favorite thing dovetails in perfectly. My favorite thing is that everyone in the home locker room was so damn happy for Cat when the Knicks came in and kicked their asses. Everyone was so happy. We got treat tickets. I think we all went out for ice cream after the game because we'd like to give trophies to everyone and we like to be happy for everyone. And I've never seen a locker room so content with getting their ass kicked. I at least think that the post-game Golden State was a little bit more, okay, that's not good. And Ant did have some pointed comments, although he wouldn't reveal like what he didn't like about the offense.
Yeah.
It was sort of cryptic, and then he sort of did reveal it. Again, I think a lot of it comes back to the lack of a fit from Julius Randle. But yeah, we were elated. We couldn't wait to get out of the room and go hug Cat. Goodbye. So yeah, good for them. They were all very pleased. I'm happy for them. Got your ass whipped.
My favorite Wolves thing is on January 17th when the Wolves go play the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden, and we get tribute videos for Dante and Julius Randle. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's going to be my favorite thing, and the reaction of everyone, Knicks fans, Wolves fans, thanking Julius Randle and Dante for their time with the Knickerbockers. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to the fact the Knicks won't come back to Target Center until next season. That's also
or the finals.
Or the finals. It's also true. Kyle brings up a great point. Or it's an NBA Finals.
And the Knicks did do something in that game last week that to me was great. They wore the classic blues. They wore the classic jerseys. Like there's some teams I am not when it comes to jerseys, old man, get off my lawn. But I want the Celtics to wear green. I want the Lakers to wear the gold, right? I want the Knicks to wear the blue, and they wore the blue. And those are marvelous jerseys.
Okay, on the tribute video quick, because I got enough texts. People are going to go lose their minds. I actually agree with Judd's take on the tribute videos as it applies to the players. Because I'm with you that the quotes that came out of there after the game were like, we're all just happy for our friend. Yes. Even if that is how you felt, I don't know if that's the mentality of a team that can win a championship. Now, I also know that their heads were exploded because they lost Cat, 48 hours before media day, and maybe they just haven't even had time to come to grip with it. He's over there. He's in the blues that Judd loves, and it's just tough. From a fan perspective, though, I mean, I don't know. Like, this kind of comes back to, like, food. Like, not everyone eats food to stay alive. Some people like food because they're foodies, right? Like, they just want to post the photos of it on IG. So if you're a fan, I am not upset with fans that wanted to mourn losing a player that they felt so attached to. And I think, Dex, that was kind of your point, right? Like, Not everyone goes to Timberwolves games hoping they win. And now that's another topic. But I think there are people that just go to sporting events for the same reason they go, try appetizers at 6 restaurants on a Saturday. Like, they just want to have fun and memories and stuff. And for some fans, like it or not, it's not about winning and losing. But from the players to be like, we were just amped for Carl, I don't know. That's probably something you put in one of those famous group chats that Chris Hine wrote about. I don't think that's something you'd say to the media of like, I know we lost by 30 at home, but shout out to our big brother. Like that can't come out. Fans can say, I had a good time watching Carl get his flowers, but the starting point guard or the starting small forward can't say that. I like firmly believe that.
The main takeaway from me, though, is you did 2 videos. Incorporate the public service into the player one and get it done with. And it doesn't, but the fact that you did 2, I mean, the Timberwolves from the top on down seem to basically celebrate Cat kicking their asses. And that's what I didn't like.
And you're kind of right, because you were doing the whole, like, don't promote your own service, right? Like, don't promote your own volunteerism. I actually agree with that. I just know, and you, Judd, you know this too, Jaden McDaniels is doing the coat drive now, replacing Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that is because the team sent me a press release.
Yeah, he's not going to.
So I think the team, that's where the angst should go, as well as the players. Again, I think the fans are very innocent here, just trying to be
I agree
fans.
with that. Yes, I'm not.
But I think the team being like, we're going to do all these things to promote him. He got this art piece in the locker room post game that Krasinski wrote about, like that had all these little images that made a bigger image.
Yeah.
I think that probably leaked into the locker room of they're all just empathizing and sympathizing. It's like, I don't know if I love that. So however many videos he got, and you know this, Judd, too, basketball ops, the people that put those little videos together, social, like they're not having every morning check-ins with Tim Conley, so maybe he didn't even know, but I just think the team could have had a better 15-man and 12 dozen coaches like, hey, let's put all that aside and let's go try to kick this guy's ass. And that was not the vibe.
Yeah, exactly right. Well said.
So there's Flagrant Howls. There's a therapeutic episode of Flagrant Howls there for you, Sansfield Mackey.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Got Kyle Teige, who was here. He grinded through another episode of after being
Phil's
at
Carl
Lumen
and I'm
Field.
Julius.
Yes.
I just tried. I didn't pass the ball much, but I'm sorry.
You know what, Kyle? You had every right to dribble the air out of the ball today.
Your microphone got sticky. I'm not going to lie.
You had every right dribble the air out of that basketball today, and you did it, and you did it well for 42 minutes. You literally did exactly right. We're ending here on 42 minutes.
You had 42 minutes. Tips is your coach.
Great performance there from Kyle and Judd. I believe we'll have another episode at the end of this week. Go check out Purple Daily. Hottest takes dropped. Before I Die will be available on Tuesday. Vent Line was on fire on Sunday, actually. Kyle was on there, too. You can go see Kyle. Shades on and everything from the dark at Lumen Field. Love it, Kyle. You were looking great. Great takes, too. Hit the like button, subscribe button on Flagrant Howls. Appreciate you guys. Have a good holiday week.